Zoltán Kövecses, Professor Emeritus at Eötvös Loránd University, Budapest, presents his talk on the topic Love as a Complex Conceptual Category.
Zoltán Kövecses is a cognitive linguist and Professor Emeritus at Eötvös Loránd University, Budapest. His research areas include the theory of metaphor and metonymy, emotion concepts and the language of emotions, universality and variation in conceptual categories, and the cognition-context-culture interface in thought.
His books include Extended Conceptual Metaphor Theory, 2020, Where Metaphors Come From, 2015, Metaphor. A Practical Introduction, 2010, Language, Mind, and Culture, 2006, Metaphor in Culture. Universality and Variation, 2005, and Metaphor and Emotion, 2000.
So, love is a complex conceptual category. I will be concerned with the concept of love as Victor was making it clear that is badly missing from the study of love, and not only the study of love, from many other areas of experience that researchers study. It is very difficult to give a precise definition of the concept that defines a particular topic. This is especially true in the case of love, as Victor so convincingly explained and demonstrated. Me as a linguist, I am probably neither a top-down scholar or a bottom-up scholar, because I am studying language and I am studying love through language. So I don't really know whether this is top-down or bottom-up. It is somewhere in between, it seems to me, but I would need to think some more about this issue. And the probably the most important issue that I would like to address is what makes love so complex. What makes the conceptual category of love so complex that makes it very difficult to define it, of course. And I'm going to approach this issue as a linguist, more precisely as a cognitive linguist. Cognitive linguists are in the business of studying concepts. That is, they take language to be a window to our conceptual system, and that's exactly what I try to do in the case of love. I am trying to approach the issue of all the complexities that come to the fore, from the study of language. Now, these are the topics that I will be talking about in some detail. First, I would like to show that figurative devices like metaphor and metonymy are very important in our understanding of the concept of love. Then I will talk about two major components of romantic love. And then I will be talking about a new development, partly in my own work, concerning the multi-level nature of metaphors that apply to romantic love. And then I will distinguish different kinds of love, somewhat in the same way that Victor was talking about this. And then I will draw some conclusions. Now, first of all, I must make it clear that my own work on on the study of love started with Lakoff and Johnson's 1980 book, because interestingly, but perhaps very understandably, Lakoff and Johnson used all kinds of love metaphors to demonstrate their major ideas in metaphors we live by. One of the major ideas in that book is that um, metaphors are pervasive in everyday language, but even more importantly, their main point was that metaphors involve two concepts where there is an abstract target domain and there is a much less abstract or a physical source domain. Love is a Journey became their um, major example in demonstrating how conceptual metaphor theory works. And these are all the conceptual metaphors that they provide in the book. Love is a Journey, Physical Force, Patient, Madness, Magic, War. And finally, they also provide a metaphor without linguistic examples. Love is a collaborative work of art. They offer this example to make the point that while the previous conceptual metaphors, journey, force, patient, madness, and so on, are completely conventional metaphors, conceptual metaphors, and the linguistic metaphors that exemplify them are also highly conventional as far as conventionality of linguistic items go. Um, Love is a collaborative work of art is different in this respect. It is very, very unconventional. This is the slide on my own work on love and other emotion concepts. As you can see, I started working on it with the first book in 1986, and then Language of Love, Emotion Concepts, and so on and so forth, all the way to Metaphor in Culture 2005. There are chapters dealing with love. This is just to give you a background on to my own cognitive linguistic work on love, and so it was a very nice invitation from Victor to go back to some of these things and refresh my memories about them and add some new things. So I will do these two. I will try to combine these two things. One, taking things from the past and adding things from the present. Now, so I mentioned all the Lakoff Johnson metaphors, but then in my own research, I have found many more. And this is a new list on the next couple of slides of metaphors that I have discovered and wrote about in those publications, like Love is a Nutrient. There's an example after each of these conceptual metaphors: fire, fluid in a container, fire, economic exchange. I am putting more into this than you are. Natural force, slapped me off my feet. Opponent, she tried to fight her feelings of love. Captive animal, she let go of her feelings, and so on. Love is a rapture or a high on love, and love can make you drunk. So this is, as you can see, first you have to do a lot of lexical work, usually using dictionaries or a thesauri to find the expressions and try to build the conceptual metaphors. Unfortunately, I do not have enough time to go into the details of this, but this is how it works. This is the continuation of it. Love is a unity of complementary parts. we are as one, they are breaking up, inseparable, fused together, bond, closeness, warmth. Um, Love is a game, make a play for someone. Hidden object, eventually found love. The last four here have to do with the beloved, the object of love, which is a deity or a valuable object or a small child, metaphorically speaking, of course, and appetizing food, which is very common. I understand in American English, like sweetie pie and so on. Now, in addition to the metaphors, there are quite a few metonymies. Metonymies are somewhat like metaphors in that, there is some kind of substitution element there, but essentially, given a particular frame like the love frame, metonymy would be to take an element of the frame and let that stand for the whole frame, or take the whole frame and let it stand for an element within the frame. So, what are some of the elements in the love frame that we are encountered by in daily experience? Increase in body heat, that can stand for love. Increase in heart rate, the well-known expression to be a heart throb. Blushing for love, dizziness, physical weakness, sweaty palms, inability to breathe. You take my breath away. As you can see, these are well-worn, highly conventional metaphorical expressions, and the metonymies also are conventional ones. Interference with accurate perception. For love, he saw nothing but her. Inability to think. He can't think straight when around her. Preoccupation with another. Mooning over someone or thinking about her all the time. I apologize for using her uh, in all these cases, not the other way around. Probably these are my subjective experiences as well, to give some more life to the completely conventional linguistic language stuff. Physical closeness for love, they're always together. Intimate sexual behavior, shower someone with kisses or caress her gently. Sex stands for love. Make love, loving visual behavior, joyful visual behavior, and so on, for love. So these are the metonymies, which come in various forms, like physiological, like increase in body heat, or expressive, or all kinds of behavioral reactions. Now, there is this notion of related concepts that I have written in those publications that I mentioned, and I try to collect mostly on the basis of dictionary evidence, all the concepts that somehow get mentioned in dictionaries next to love, like liking, sexual desire, respect, devotion, self sacrifice, enthusiasm, admiration, kindness, affection, care, attachment, intimacy, pride, longing, friendship, interest. Now, my claim about these is that they are related to the concept of love, in English at least, but I would imagine in many other languages. But there are subtle differences between them in terms of the degree of their relationship to love. So some of them are clearly much more closely related to love than others. So my um, my view is that, for example, liking is very closely related, so much so that we can probably call it an inherent concept to love, which means that love somehow assumes liking. Um, um, Interestingly enough, Lakoff and I, in our joint work on anger, we developed a little test to see, whether a concept is inherent in another concept, and we called that the but test. If you say, that I am in love with her, but I don't like her, I think that would strike you as odd. That doesn't really make too much sense. But if you say, for example, I am in love with her, but I don't have any major sexual desire for her. Um, Probably this is a little more acceptable and would not, at least it would not be as odd as I am in love with her, but I don't like her. If you don't like her, how come you're in love? But somehow sexual desire seems to uh, behave in a more permissive way. And some of the others, like friendship, are, uh, if you say I'm in love with her, but she is not my friend, probably this would be okay. But what I am proposing here is that we want to make sure how close or how inherent or non-inherent these concepts are in love or to love. We would need to go through them and do extensive surveys, making use of the test with a large number of native speakers of a language. However, friendship is listed here because, after all, there must be a reason why boyfriend and girlfriend are called friends. So friendship, in a way, is very close, is definitely related to love, even though it might not be an inherent kind of relationship. But we can say that it is a metonymic kind of relationship. Um, as a matter of fact, it applies to all of these concepts that they behave like metonymies. We can use them um, for love in particular contextually appropriate situations. And we would be understood as implying love. Okay, now I believe that there are that what makes the concept of love quite complex and quite difficult to deal with, and this is partly an answer to Victor's mention of relationship research and romantic relationship research and so on, and not noticing that they are indeed talking about love. Well, I think this is exactly the issue of the concept of love. At least the concept of romantic love has two major components, to my mind at least. It has an emotion part and the relation part, or an emotion aspect and the relationship aspect. And interestingly enough, the metaphors, the conceptual metaphors that we have seen previously, um, um, can be assigned to whether we are dealing with emotion or whether we are dealing with love as a relationship. So love as an emotion would have these conceptual metaphors underneath it. These are more closely related to love as an emotion. However, the second set of conceptual metaphors, like love is a building, love is closeness, love is a unity, love is a bond, and so on. Love is a journey that Lakoff and Johnson also mentioned. Love is a disease. They have to do with the relationship aspect of romantic love. And so let's take a closer look at these two sets of metaphors now. The metaphors that are based on love as a force have the job of capturing the causal aspects of romantic love. And when they do that, when they are doing what they're supposed to do, I mean the metaphors, then we can find that we are using, for example, on schematicity level 3, we are using metaphors like love as a natural force, like she swept me off my feet, or the love is fire metaphor, or the opponent metaphor, and so on. These have to do with interactions of forces, like the wind between the wind and the person, and the opponent between two opponents, and so on. And these are reflections of the causation aspects of romantic love. Now, as a new development in the theory of conceptual metaphors, I propose that there are different schematicity levels. Here they are indicated by 4 levels, and so I am talking about schematicity level 3 now, because these are what we can take to be the basic level of conceptualization. However, for example, if you take any one of these, you take the opponent or you take the natural force metaphor, you can go a step higher to schematicity level 2, and you would find a much more general, much more schematic metaphor. That would be the superordinate metaphor to all of the conceptual metaphors of schematicity level 3. And this would be emotions or interactions between two forceful entities. And the two forceful entities can either be the cause of an emotion and the self, or it can be the interaction between the self and the emotion. I will say a little more about this in the next slide. But now I just want to point out that what all the conceptual metaphors that we find on the basic level, like fire, opponent, waves, winds, and so on, are simply um, subcases of a more general metaphor, like emotions are interactions between two forceful entities. But there are still higher level metaphors, and this is what I mean by schematicity level 1, which would be causes or forces. Those of you who are just a little bit familiar with conceptual metaphor theory would recognize as one of the basic, or probably the basic metaphor about causation in cognitive linguistics. Uh, Lakoff and Grady and so on, several people have written about it. Now, that seems to be even more general than emotions or interactions between two forceful entities, because emotions specifies the cause, and force specifies the interaction between two forceful entities. So causes or forces can apply basically to any case where there is some causal interaction between two entities. And on schematicity level 2, however, we are restricting or limiting to the applicability of the extremely general causes or forces metaphor to the emotions and the interactions between forceful entities. And we further specify the emotion is interaction between forces metaphor to become natural force, opponent, fire, and so on and so forth. What is schematicity level 4? Well, uh, the schematicity level 4 is like a subordinate level metaphor. If you think of Rashi's superordinate, basic level, subordinate level concepts or categories, that would be the lowest schematicity level, because the way it comes about is that if you take, for example, Love is Fire, um, um, Love is Fire has at least two major, what I call meaning foci. It emphasizes um, uh, two themes, if you will, in fire. One is how the fire can cause something, and second, how intense something is, like a phenomenon. And when we apply Love is Fire, that can be a reflection of these two phenomena, either the causation aspect of Love is Fire or the intensity aspect of Love is Fire. And here, in this hierarchy of metaphors, we are dealing with the cause of love is the cause of fire. And so one of the applicable expressions in English would be, she kindled love in his heart. But if we were in a different hierarchy, not in the causal hierarchy, then we could be talking about the intensity of love, and you would say, X is burning with love with someone else. And then at the top, you would find um, not causes or forces, but let's say something like intensity is heat. Okay, now there are different causal stages of interaction of forces. One is when there is a cause, like the beauty of a woman, let's say, changing the the state of the self, such that the self becomes emotional, the self falls in love, let's say. But then there is a second application of causes or forces, and that is when the self is fighting with, the emotion itself. I am not saying that this is terribly common in the case of love, but it is very common in other emotions like anger, where there are major social restrictions on anger. Probably this does not apply so clearly to romantic love, but there are situations when it does apply. So we have two generic scenarios where the cause of emotion leads to the existence of emotion, in this case, love, and then there are all kinds of responses that are produced by the self. Now, however, if we take the self versus love forceful interaction and add it to this stage, then we get two steps. There is, in the first step, cause of emotion leads to the existence of love. And then there is or there is not an attempt on the part of the self to control the emotion, in this case, love. And depending on that, there is a response or an expression of the emotion. So these are the stages, what I call the stages of the emotion scenario or frame, and we can try to reconstruct that in the case of love as well. Now, but before we do that, let's turn to the relationship aspect of love. The relationship aspect of love is not concerned with um, the causal structures that are the main business of love as an emotion. Love as an emotion addresses such issues or deals with such issues as what is the basis for the relationship for romantic love. And what we find is that the building metaphor is used for the relationship, love as a relationship. And so we would see romantic love as the foundation of a building. So what this means is that in the popular mind or in the language-based folk model of love, romantic love is based on as a build is based on the emotion of romantic love. So the two aspects of romantic love come together in this particular metaphor. Romantic love is the foundation of a building. Simply put, if you're not emotionally in love with the person, then you can't have a strong romantic relationship. A strong romantic relationship requires love as a romantic love as an emotion. This is why I say that this is the meeting point of this metaphor is the meeting point of the two metaphor systems. Now, another issue is how we view the closeness of the relationship between the subject and the object. And the major metaphor that we use for that purpose is love is a unity of two complementary parts. Of two complementary parts is very important here, as we will see, because if you are assuming that this is not just simply a unity, but of complementary parts, then all kinds of things follow from it, at least logically follow from this conception of the metaphor. Love as a relationship also addresses the issue of the interaction between the subject and object of love. And this is what we use the metaphor love is an economic exchange for. What this says is that we think of a love relationship as an interaction between the subject and the object of love, like an economic exchange. That is, you're supposed to give, some amount of feeling into the relationship, but then you're also expecting the other person to give you the same amount of feeling. And this is what makes it an economic exchange. And at least, and I have talked to many Americans about about this issue, but also Hungarians. The usual expectation is that this metaphor should work on a completely um, reciprocal basis, moreover, on a 50-50 basis. That is, if you love someone to some degree, then you expect the other person to love you to the same degree. This is what we mean by what I mean by the economic exchange metaphor. Um, Another thing that we use love as a relationship for is to judge the progress of the relationship given a particular purpose. The purpose can be anything. It can be, marriage. It can be staying together throughout your lives, and so on and so forth. So, given the purpose, we can judge the progress of the relationship by means of love is a journey as a metaphor. And if you remember, this is one of the metaphors that Lakoff and Johnson used, but this is not a terribly love specific metaphor. Love, because we can use the journey metaphor to judge the progress of almost anything. How your business is doing. We are just at the beginning of the road. You can say that about your business, your career, but also your love relationship. Finally, love as a relationship is also concerned with evaluating the relationship and also the object of love. For that purpose, we use love is a valuable commodity, or love is a disease, and um, metaphors like the object of love is a deity is very common to think about the object of love. Now, given all these metaphors, metonymies, and these different levels of schematicity in our metaphors, we can build several models of love. And as I mentioned, I am a cognitive linguist. I am interested in, conceptual representations of particular concepts. And in cognitive linguistics, we would say that the best model is to think of um, 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 ideal or stereotypical or typical models as representing the category, because um, um, they are the prototypes for a category, again, in Rush's sense. Now, if we take that view, we can build a model which I call the ideal model, which would look something like this. Um, Stage one, love comes along. I fall in love. The other attracts me irresistibly. The intensity of attraction is immediately. Notice that I am not inventing these. I am not inventing them because I um, um, draw some conclusions on the basis of the linguistic materials that I am working with. And these are the metaphors that I find in the lexical approach, as I call it, in the relating to the topic of romantic love. The bolded part, love is a person, existence is being here, love, as in love comes along. It is bolded because I wanted to indicate that these are metaphors that were not listed at the beginning because they are not love specific. These are extremely general metaphors. Love is a person is, of course, the well-known case of personification, but we can personify almost anything. And so love is a person is, love comes along. This is not highly revealing about love. Neither is existence as being here, extremely generic metaphor, but it also applies to love. Falling in love is interesting, and it is interesting because we take falling in love uh, as one of the key terms and key metaphors in relation to love. But as far as cognitive linguists are concerned, this is nothing special or highly specific to love of love, because it also derives from an extremely general metaphor. Change is motion. Uh, Things went from good to bad, from bad to worse. Um, Change is motion, and accidental changes are accidental motions. And what is accidental motion can be stumbling, slipping, but also falling. Usually, when you fall, it is not deliberate, it is not intentional, it is accidental. And when we say we fall in love, it is exactly this idea. It was not my intention. All of a sudden, it happened. So that's why it's bolded. In any case, stage two, love's intensity is maximal. Love is mutual. This is where the economic exchange metaphor comes into the picture. Um, you can't have ideal love without thinking that this economic exchange, what you put into the relationship, is not the same, both ways. I feel that my love gives me extra energy, physical first nutrient. Also, you are losing your mind as the insanity metaphor. Now, at stage three, there comes the unity metaphor, and you can see how much the unity metaphor, how much content it provides for what we take to be ideal love. I don't want to read the whole thing. But in addition to that, there are the metonymies also participating in the ideal model. There are all these things happening to you physiologically: increase in body heat, increase in heart rate, blushing, and so on. Also, the behavioral reactions show up: physical closeness, intimate sexual behavior, sex, and so on. You experience love as something pleasant. Remember the rapture, magic, drunk metaphors. And I also define my attitude toward the object of love through a number of emotions and emotional attitudes. And this is the place for what I called related concepts that apply to romantic love to different degrees. And at the end, we have I am happy. And this naturally follows from the state of love, especially the romantic love. Now, this was the ideal model. This is an idealization. Um, I don't know if anyone has ever measured how often you come across this kind of model, but language, simply yields it to us, and gives us an idea of what people take to be an idealization of love. The next one, however, is not so much an idealization, but a stereotype of love. Here, notice that, again, the bolding. Notice that I search for true love here. There is this intentional aspect to it. Uh, there is finding, and both of these have to do with the hidden object metaphor. I go out to look for love. This is, I called my article in Personal and Social Relationships, a linguist's quest for love. And these are the metaphors that are involved in the hidden object metaphor. But when you find love, you fall in love, and this is also explained by the change is motion metaphor. Again, there is the physical force metaphor. You feel attraction, and at stage two, you have the fire metaphor stepping in. Intensity is maximal. You are burning with love. Interestingly enough, and it is bolded because it does not coincide with the ideal model that we just saw. It is mutual, but not necessarily so. This is why, the stereotype does not give you an idealization. There is no 50-50 contribution, but you can complain here that, I am putting into it then more into it than you are. The economic exchange metaphor. Moreover, and perhaps more importantly, this is where the opponent metaphor can come into the picture. And I am wondering um, uh, to what extent keeping control over the emotion, which is usually a very important aspect of at least the negative emotions, although love is clearly a positive emotion, but still, I think in certain situations, we are thinking about it, especially, I don't know, there are certain social situations when we want to think twice about whether it is a good thing to let go and give up all control. And this is why the opponent metaphor can also find a place in the stereotypical model of love. And on stage four, you can find the unity metaphor and its inferences, like a state of perfect harmony, like it provides the stability of the relation. We have an unterrible bond or unbreakable bond, for example. And then the notion of the object of love being irreplaceable. If we are complementary parts, then what is complementary to me cannot really be replaced easily by another. That's what I meant by these associations or implications of the unity metaphor. And again, you go through the physiological, the behavioral responses, and finally with the related concepts. However, there are two concepts that show up here that did not show up in the case of ideal love: jealousy and faithfulness. Notice that in the case of the ideal conception of romantic love, there is simply no place for jealousy. It's it's unthinkable. Or faithfulness. You don't need them. Everything is great. Everything is fine. Everything works as it should according to your ideal. But here, this is a somewhat more sociologically um, um, a realistic idea of romantic love. And also, I am happy. And finally, this is the closing stage when love is fulfilled in marriage. Um, Marriage and romantic love, fulfilled romantic love, are conceptualized metaphorically as valuable commodity, and then the intensity decreases. Love turns into affection. From heat, which characterizes the fire, you go down to the warmth level in terms of the intensity of how you feel. So this was my my attempt to account for the complexity of romantic love. Let's see what conclusions can we draw from this.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt you, Zoltán. Could you summarize very, very quickly the conclusions,
okay.
because we are running out of time?
Okay,
That's so kind.
well, maybe you can easily read this page, and then I go to my second set of conclusions. Um, Here, I just want to point out that I hope I made a good case for how figurative language and thinking plays a major role in our conception of romantic love. Um, but now let me go on to the second set. I have taken Viktor Karandashev's book and looked at his 10 most important propositions about romantic love that he found in various cultures of the world. These are the core propositions that can be found in all cultures in some form. Now, in parentheses and in capital letters, I inserted the metaphors that capture exactly the same aspect that Victor also noticed in his study of romantic love in a variety of different cultural contexts. So we find the preoccupation with another as metonymy. We find the object of love as a deity for idealization. We find the desire for merger, a union in the love is a unity. And we find the exclusive focus and the irreplaceability also in love as a unity. We find the reciprocity of feelings and desires in the economic exchange metaphor. We find attachment here, we find caring here, and we find the idea of self-sacrifice as well. So out of the 10 propositions that Victor found at the core of what romantic love is in a variety of different cultural contexts, we find 8 points of meeting points with the figurative language of metaphor and metonymy and related concepts in the cognitive linguistic approach. And that shows that maybe the cognitive linguistic approach could play um, um, a more important role in our study of love than it currently does, and that we could at least give some ideas for scholars working in psychology, anthropology, and so on. We could give them ideas of where to look for evidence or signs of romantic love in particular languages and cultures. Well, thank you very much, and I wish Victor a fast recovery. It's very unfortunate that he cannot be here with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zoltán. Thank you so much for this really engaging approach to love from